And it reflects the favor and the blessing that Leith Anderson noted with us. Well, I do see some new challenges, and I know I've got to go quickly. New challenges involve, the dance and the relationship with the Anglican Church in North America. Whenever new things like that are happening, there's got to be a workout of how that can exactly happen, how we can work together. We've got to find a way to work with our net. We have a different structure, frankly. Our structure is very fluid. We work with network leaders. We work with bishops, missionary bishops that are also pastors. We are doing things by affinity. We are connected in Rwanda. We have some distinctives that we're not willing to surrender or give up, and all of those things are going to stay in place. And then at the same time, we are I'm on the governance committee of the whole effort to create the Anglican Church in North America, and they have slightly different structures. They allow for the Anglican mission structures, but the structures themselves are a bit different. And they are more sort of legislative and more like a province. We're not. We're a mission. And so, again, there's some differences. They accept the idea of having Rwanda a part of the new province, kind of like you can have one Church of England with both York and Canterbury. You can have one Anglican Church in North America with both Rwanda and Bob Duncan and the like, and we can make that work together, but it has some challenges, and it will have challenges. The basic line, you'll hear about this tomorrow afternoon, is every congregation needs to simply connect with a bishop, and that's what we do anyway, and we will build this thing together. The Anglican Mission has a both-and commitment. We're both committed to the Anglican Mission, everything I've just said, and we're also committed to the Anglican Church in North America. And the structures of the ACNA have the constitutions and the canons and the assembly coming up this June and all that type of thing you'll hear about tomorrow. And I anticipate there'll be something of a shakeout as everything sort of settles, but that's a challenge. I'm going to tell you another challenge real quickly. We have a challenge that we need more bishops. I know we just did this last winter conference. I was here. But we need more bishops. And we need to move west of the Mississippi. And 3/4 of our churches are east of the Mississippi. So, therefore, 3/4 of our bishops are east of the Mississippi. But we've got to break into the west. And we're committed to this. I've begun the conversations with this. I've talked it over with the leadership of Rwanda. I'll be talking to them some more about this. And I anticipate this in this next year. That's what I anticipate we're going to be doing. And it will be west of the Mississippi. Third, I'm going to say what I see is that we've got to maintain our focus. I really mean that. What Nietzsche said was he was right about at least one thing. What is most needed under heaven and earth is a long obedience in the same direction. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to maintain that focus. I've told you the railroad story before, but at the turn of the 20th century, when Vanderbilts and all these people had all the land and all the tracks and all the railroads, they actually fought and resisted airplane development, automobile development, all these other things, because they thought they were in the railroad business. They forgot they were in the transportation business. They could have embraced all of that and really but they didn't. We are in the mission business. That is what we do, and that we're not going to forget that that's what we do. And our challenge will be exactly the same in this hour that I think the railroads had 100 years ago. And we need to hold firm to our commitments as we support James of Jerusalem, Bishop Bob Duncan, in the work that he's been called to do. And finally, I see a challenge in finances. I would have to mention that. Finances, real finances, because we're in a crisis of sorts around the world, and I know that. But I've read the New Testament, and I know that Paul was doing the mission even while there was a hard time in Jerusalem, and the saints in Jerusalem needed help and support, and somehow God covered that. In the Old Testament, I've read the book. Somehow you can have drought and famine and difficulty, and God moves and works and does remarkable things even in those not very happy times. So I'm anticipating that we're going to be fine by God's grace and God's favor. So then, as chairman of the mission, I want to say I have followed the Habakkuk argument. I have taken my stand on the watch post. I've seen what God would say. And what I see for 2009 is further growth. What I see is more favor and success, because that's what God has promised. I see a few challenges, whether it's the dance with the Anglican Church of North America, and working that all out together, or whether it's finances or whatever. I see more bishops for the West. It's coming, troops. And I see a critical urgency to maintain our focus in these challenging times. I see an enormous promise, and I see an enormous change. Now, I want to make a point about change as I quit. So I'm going to ask you to do something that I've never asked you to do. Some of you that have worked with me over the years have known that I do this. But humor me. This is something that you're going to say, Dadgummit, Murphy, why are you doing that? Because I want to. And what it'll do is it will model something. It will show you something. Please stand up for me. This is not I'm going somewhere with this. And you'll remember it better this way. Now, I want you to do a little thing that's going to take about 5 minutes, 4 minutes. It won't take long. And you don't have to. I want you to turn and face the person next to you silently. And I want you to observe them real carefully. Just observe them real carefully, because something's going to happen in a minute. Now, don't want to make you feel awkward, but don't just look in their eyes. Look at them, just observe them. Now, got it? Now I want you to turn back to back with that person. Back to back with that person so you can't see them. Now, I want everyone in this room to make 5 changes in your appearance. Make 5 changes back to back, because the other guy's going to try to find them. Just make 5 changes. This is not rocket science. It's not that hard. 5 changes. Got 30 seconds. 5 changes. Okay? Now, I want you to turn and face each other again and let each one try to identify the 5 changes you made. Okay, you either did it or you didn't. I don't know, but let me have your attention. Now, 1 second, just 1 second. 1 second, please. Okay? Now, I want you to make 5 more changes. No, I was kidding. Y'all, sit down, please sit down. Now, I want to make some observations about this, because if you've heard me say anything this morning, you've heard me say that we are living in a period of enormous change. I have talked about deep change. I have talked about the challenges of change. I have talked about what God has changed in the last 9 years since the Singapore consecrations today, 9 years ago. And now I want to make some observations about change that I believe are important and that God would have us hold to as we move forward. First observation about change. Most people, when I ask you to make 5 changes, most people would remove or take off something. Did you notice that? Here's the learning. Change comes across as loss. Consciously or unconsciously, we tend to think of change as loss. Few people add. Most people take off. And that's just know that. Emotionally, sometimes all this change feels like loss. But God is going to do something more. Secondly, most people, y'all, get comfortable after some change. You're lightened up a little bit. You heard the roar in the room. You heard the laughter. You're kind of more relaxed than you were a minute ago. Here's the learning. We become comfortable after we get something off our chest. So what we're saying is change actually has a positive. Instead of being all tightened up, restricted, and frustrated, and terse, and irritable, something starts to happen when we begin to move through change that ain't bad. It's not bad. It feels kind of good, actually. Third, most people don't ask someone else to help them. When I ask you to turn back to back and make some changes, you could have asked the person next to you, would you loan me something, put on, or do something, or help me? Or we're probably not going to do that. Here's the learning. The learning is we assume we have to do it alone. Well, I believe that God has gathered the Anglican Mission throughout North America with all of our networks, with all of our network leaders, with all of our clergy and our laity, with all of our prayer warriors and intercessors, with all of our congregations. I believe He has gathered a community of faith, a fellowship, and we're not alone in this thing. And that we can, in fact, cry out to the clergy or the network leader or the bishop or the whatever, the structures, the coaches, the people that we have in place, and things can be done together. We don't have to assume that we're all alone way out here in Hooterville, one of those dots on the map of the North America. We're in it together, troops. God has called us to be a people on the move. Fourth observation. Most of you mumbled when I asked you to make 5 more changes. Have you read the story of Moses, the murmuring in the camps? Here's the learning. Here's the learning. Research shows that people cannot handle but 3 to 5 changes at a time. Now, you need to know that. What you murmured about is important. So there is a tolerance to change that you have to be aware of when we do what we do. And we have to be wise as serpents as to what exact changes we're going to implement at a given time. One of the things I do is stick to the vision. That's not a change. In some ways, that's comforting, even as we make the deep changes moving forward. There's a limit of about 3 to 5 changes that most can handle at a time. And finally, the fifth learning, most of you people reverted back to your original dress when we finished the exercise. There's a learning here. There's a learning. The learning is that follow-up is essential because relapse is natural. Now, where I'm going with that is I have to stand up every year and tell you the vision one more time. Like the Easter sermon, I got to say it a new way, a different way, and a special way, because relapse and reverting back to old patterns is so natural. What God has called us to is a new thing, a new pattern, a new way. The rummage sale of the present 21st century is going to create a new way forward, not a reverting back to it's sort of like this is the way it used to be, and I feel comfortable with that. Well, I don't. I think what we want to do is this new thing that God has purposed and called us to do, and that will involve a new way of being Anglican Christians in North America. So change is difficult, I know it. But this is the gospel, transformed life and transformed lives in a transformed work for the 21st century. It is very important and very powerful. So please remember the new emergence, the great emergence, the book that I was talking to you about. And we're moving through all that change right now. God's behind it, and He's done it before, and it's not brand new, and we'll be fine. Please remember the book of the prophet Habakkuk, that he's given us a vision, and he said, write it. And then he said, put it in stone. It's not changing. We're going after the 130 million troops. We're going to plant churches all over North America. It hasn't been accomplished. There's still about 130 million out there. So we've got to stay with it. And then I would say, you remember even last week when we had Obama's inauguration and all the talk about hope and dream and about new resolves and commitments and the like, about yes, we can. Well, this morning, I want to say, I believe that we are being called to a greater hope and a greater dream and a greater promise and a greater thing. I believe, yes, we can, because a sovereign God thought it up, gave us the vision, and has blessed and favored us throughout all of it. And I bless you and thank you for your time, and I ask for your continued prayers as we move through this winter conference. God bless.